let's wrap up this session so that we can have a coffee break, I think, which is much needed after such a heavy debate. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to the rapporteurs of the three groups. I have now somehow summarized what was discussed in the groups. Not very structured, not very well cleaned because of the short time, but let me just draw the key points from what is being discussed in the three groups. I will read the questions because we don't have them on the screen so that you know which question I refer to when I'm citing what was debated. The first question which was discussed in the groups was, what are the main challenges for ARI industry collaboration, and what are the key actions needed in terms of providing ARI capacities and services needed by industry? For example, legal framework, business models, quality assurance, user support. One of the things which came out of all three groups was in particularly that the quality of the collaboration depends on the time frame. It was stressed in all three groups that what the research infrastructures are looking for is a long-term collaboration. Not only because in the long-term collaboration you build the trust which is needed for a fruitful cooperation, but also the needs of both sides can be better integrated into the work plan of the research infrastructure, and therefore the necessary attention for the needs of the industry can be presented there. Of course, there are different types of research infrastructures, as well as there are different types of industry. Some need data, some need more different type of services. Some research infrastructures are mainly focused on very basic research with little industrial impact, others are much closer to. So in terms of model contracts, which was one of the suggestions put forward in, also in the debate, was that they have certain pluses, but there are also certain minuses, specifically because they don't take into observation these necessary differences. One of the problems highlighted was the question of co-financing, particularly in terms of joint projects where the funding, the EU funding, for example, in case of industrial research, it cannot be 100%. So this could be a minus for the research infrastructures, and some research infrastructures would, in that case, rather avoid the cooperation. The question arises also in terms of intellectual rights, so that is definitely one of the issues that needs to be looked at it closer, and the question of open access. Where do you draw the line between what is openly accessed free of charge and where is the service which is provided to the industry of such nature that the research infrastructures can charge it? Again, the key message from the answers on this first question is that trust and confidence building is the most important issue for ARI industry cooperation, and that you also need to invest in staff within the research infrastructure, which is the staff which is keen to work with industry. Not everybody wants to do it, and not everybody is qualified to do it, but if you want to have a fruitful collaboration, that is something where research infrastructures need to pay attention to, as well as, on the other hand, also the research, the partners from the industry. The second question which was debated is, what are the key actions needed to ensure complementarity of the activities of research infrastructures and technology infrastructures in providing effective support to industry? Here, I would say that the three groups were looking at this question from somewhat different points. One of the groups put itself a question, the first question, what is really a technology infrastructure? Suggesting that we need a clearer definition to better understand the topic, and as well as the then potential cooperation or synergy. In the other group, it was pointed out that several research infrastructures also work, in fact, or parts of them work also as technology infrastructures. So they are already within one doing a complementary work. The question arises as to the definition of the state rules, state aid rules, how this can be dealt with or addressed so that both research infrastructures and technology infrastructures come up with a workable, usable definition, how this should be how this will be addressed in the future. In both the first and the second question, I noticed that there was a debate going on that there are research infrastructures with more experience, with more positive experience, and that there should be a forum or a platform provided for them to share the experience with those who only started with the cooperation. So different kind of setups to communicate seem to be very important to not only improve the collaboration of research infrastructures with industry, but also in combining the work of the research infrastructures and the technology infrastructures in the future. There is no clear border between what the ERIs do and what the TIs do. So there's a need for more communication to understand one another and see where you can complement one another. So in a way, engaging with industry should be sort of developing in parallel both for research infrastructures and TIs, and have a forum where you can exchange views, where you can cooperate and share best practices. As for the third question, which was referring to the 10th FP, how the ERI industry collaboration and ERI-TI complementarities should be addressed, there was more of sort of suggestions as what should not be there as to what should be in there. In particularly saying that what we want to make sure is that there is less conditionality for research infrastructures, that they need to be partners with industry, because some have different means of cooperating with the industry and not necessarily have this as a condition for applying for the funding. Then there was a whole list of things which are really, I would say, technical issues, like the amount of documentation which needs to be simplified, like the process should be faster, that it uses up a lot of capacity to prepare for the project proposals, and then the issue of outsourcing, of writing the project proposals because they're so complex, etc. So these are all the issues which were pointed out in terms of, I would say, more technicality than the content of. There was, however, also suggestion that there should be a specific focus on ERI-TI collaboration, but in specific target areas, not too broad, so that in those areas we can see how the development of cooperation between ERI and TIs can be developed. Then this can be used as a model for further work. The cooperation between TIs and ERIs should be something which would be placed in what is currently known as the Pillar 2. This is also mentioned in, I would say, several work, at least in two discussion groups. And as far as the last question, I think I had a very little input from the discussion groups. I guess we were all really exhausted by the time we got to the landscape analysis question. Is there any specific relevant message? And the specific message was that the LAs is mostly linked to the scientific domain, not to industrial needs, so it's a different perspective. And maybe they should reflect also on the areas where there is potential with industry cooperation, but not so as to suggest that research infrastructures are obliged to enter into this cooperation, but only to identify possibilities for this. I hope I have summarized the discussions somewhat correctly, given the short time I had and the notes that I received. So I'd only ask the moderators of the three discussion groups if they have anything else to add to this. Peter says no. I don't see the others. Any comments from the rapporteurs who were in these working groups? Any questions from the audience? If not, then I release you all to coffee break, and thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you. So we have coffee break now. We are running a bit late, but I propose that we still have half an hour of coffee break because it's a very important part of stakeholder engagement to have time to discuss when we are in the same room. So we will end up half an hour later than scheduled, if that's fine with you, and have now half an hour of coffee break, being back at 16:30.